So, I don't know how your week went. It doesn't matter anyway. It's behind you, right? I mean, let's quit crying about last week, last year. Somebody say move forward. But last week, I was in Alabama, in another country. We joke about Alabama because we can. They still whoop us in football every year, but that's okay. We're praying about that. But I spent the week in a little cabin in the woods in a little bitty town in Alabama we looked up the population, it was 250 people. And I think that was because Sarah May had twins last week. But I had just the first day or two, Laura was able to spend some time with me there, and then she had to come home and do the mom thing. But I was just able to take the week and spend the time with the Lord, and that's always good. And I am not good at sitting still, so I'm working on that. Sometimes it helps me to get away. And so I had the week just to spend with the Lord and get refreshed, so I'm pretty much about to explode. But I want to do something. This is a little uncomfortable for me, honestly. I know y'all think he's kind of crazy and a weirdo. He doesn't get uncomfortable, but I do. There are lots of things that make me nervous. And so this is a guitar, and I'm going to play like 10 seconds of guitar. Not to impress you, I promise, but I want to make a point. So. And I'm not taking requests. I know like 4 chords. But so this week I took my guitar. It's a lot easier to take than a piano. And I took my guitar to the cabin. And I know you won't be able to hear that super loud. That's kind of the point for me. But I just want to show you where I was with the Lord. I was on the couch in this little cabin just sitting there, and I had my guitar. I pray that it's still tuned. I just changed the strings. But I was just singing this chorus to the Lord. And you may know it, and again, you won't be able to hear it perfect, but I was singing, so I throw up my hands, praise you again and again, 'cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah, and I know it's not much, but I've nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. And as I was doing that, as I was singing, I realized then, as I was singing that song, I was just sitting there with the guitar, and I heard the Lord speak to me, and he told me 2 things, and that's what I want to share with you today. He reminded me, really, in that moment, in 2021, in July, I was actually living out something that had begun in 1987. Some of y'all weren't even born in 1987. In 1987, this man, and this may be kind of a new thing to you, what I'm about to explain, but the Bible talks about this thing called prophecy, and it's a New Testament thing, and we could talk about that later. But I'm just going to tell you how it went down for me, and you can ask me questions, and we can talk about it later. But this man came to me when I was 9 years old. He came to our church in 1987, and he began to share some things that the Lord was telling. Now, he was from Texas. He'd never seen me before. He knew nothing about me, and he began to tell me some things about myself. Some people would call that a prophecy. Some people would call it a word from the Lord. I don't care what you call it. It's interesting if it really happens. If it doesn't, then just, chalk it up to eating too much pizza. But I was 9 years old, and this man came and laid his hand on me, and he gave me about a 3 or 4 or 5 minute word from the Lord. And in that word, he said, young man, he said, you're going to play music. And at that time, I liked to sing, but not in front of anyone. And he said, and you're going to play the piano, and you're going to play the drums, and you're going to play the guitar. And I said, okay. And I'll tell you some more things that he told me in 1987. But I want to share with you that I was 9 years old, and I didn't start playing the piano until I was 19 or 20 years old. When Laura and I got married, I just decided to go buy a piano that I couldn't afford and finance it. Don't do that. And I bought this $2,000 Yamaha Clavinova and put it in my, and I didn't even know how to turn it on. Salesman loved me. But I decided to learn how to play that thing. And I was 20 years old. That was way later after 1987. And then a few years later, there were times when the church didn't have a drummer. And so I started playing some drums. I'm no professional drummer, but I can play a beat. And I started playing the drums so one was about 11 years later. The drums was about 15 years later. But I'm 43 years old now. And last year during COVID, when they sent that first stimulus check, I said, Laura, there's this guy on Facebook in Alabama who's got this tailor for sale. And I said, Laura, since you're in Alabama at the women's ramp, on your way back, could you meet this complete stranger somewhere and give him several $100s and get me this guitar and try not to get killed? And like a good wife that she was, she said, yes, I will. And so about 10 months ago, I bought my first real guitar, and I decided to learn to play the guitar. And obviously, I'm not ready to go on the road yet. I haven't signed any contracts. But it started. It started. The thing I heard the Lord say, the first of the two things was, it's not too late. It's not too late. So for some of you here today, this is going to be very, very specific. It's going to read your mail. For some of you, it may be a little more general, and some of you, it may apply later. But for some of you, this word, I just was exploding this week writing these notes down from the Lord. But I heard the Lord say, it's not too late. Somebody say, it ain't over. I was reminded of the bridge of a song we sang at the worship night here a few weeks ago on a Saturday night. And the bridge said, if I'm not dead, then he's not done. If I'm not dead, then he's not done. So what I had in 1987 was a word from God. And what I'm going to say today is that really all you need is a word from God. But you have to stand on the word before you see the word. Are you catching that? You have to stand on it before you can see it. The Bible calls this kind of living faith. So I had a word. I was actually, when I sat there playing the guitar in Alabama this week, I realized I was living in the manifestation of a word that was a seed planted in my life in 1987. I'm going to show you today that the Lord speaks words into your life, and they are seeds. And some of you have had seeds maybe for months, for years, something that God has said, and you hadn't seen it yet, and you're thinking maybe it's too late. But I felt like the Lord said it's not too late. That was the first part. Then came the second part. Is that encouraging? It's not too late. Anybody say, hey, that encourages me. You may have a loved one you've been praying for. You may have a calling that you received from God, and you're like, I ain't seen it. It's not too late. That's the good news. But then I heard him say the second part to tell you, it's not too late, but you might have to wait. It's not too late, but you might have to wait. Isn't that encouraging? You're like, wait. You see, I'm just going to be really real with you today. I'm going to share some things that I don't normally share, things that I don't always say in front of my parents. But I want to tell you a little bit of my story. I want to tell you a little bit of my dad's story. And we're going to look at some stories in the Bible. But this is so important. It's not too late, but you might have to wait. During that prophecy in 1987, when I was 9 years old, and that man who didn't know me told me about the musical instruments, he also said he didn't know my name. I think he said, young man. He said, people are going to come from miles around to hear you speak. He said that. He said, people are going to come from miles around to hear you speak. Now, this is not about me. This is not about none of that today. But I'm trying to show you something. That he said that word. There was a seed over me when I was 9 years old that people would come from miles around to hear me speak. Now, fast forward to when I'm 19 years old and I dropped out of Christian college to move back home to sleep with my girlfriend and smoke pot every day. It didn't look like that was going to happen. I just want to be real with you today because some of you might be in that situation or you might have a loved one in that situation where you're saying, God, it's not looking good. It wasn't looking good when I dropped out of Christian college and lived a life of sin. It didn't look like people were going to come from miles around to hear me talk about Jesus at that moment. But I had some people praying for me. Anybody praying for somebody? Anybody had somebody that prayed for them? I had some people that were saying, God, you said in 1987 that boy was going to preach the gospel. I'm not giving up on what you said. It's not too late. Thank y'all. It's not too late. But you might have to wait. You may have to keep standing on the promise like my parents did, even when it didn't look good. Are you going to base this whole thing on how things look or on what God said? You can stand on the promise because it's a sure foundation. Again, this is not about me, but I'm trying to show you just from my story the faithfulness of God. So I didn't graduate from Lee University in 2001 like I was scheduled to. I didn't get that bachelor's in secondary English education that I was pursuing. But I'm 43 and I'm 5 classes from my master's degree in practical theology from the King's University. By the grace of God. By the grace of God. I could have said it's too late. It's too late, God. I'm too old. Have you ever said I'm too old? I have. Have you ever said, I just can't, God. I don't have what I used to have. I'm not as good as I once was, like the country song said. It's not too late. If you're not dead, then he's not done. If you're not dead, then he's not done. It's not too late, but you might have to wait. Joey, when are you going to talk about the Bible? I'm so glad you asked. In Habakkuk chapter 2, this is our primary verse for today. Check this out. It'll be on the screen for you. This is a familiar passage. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 through 3. I'll read it to you. Then the Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets so that a runner can carry the correct message to others. Next verse. Here it comes. Get ready. Say, get ready. Get ready. This vision is for today. This vision is for tomorrow. This vision is for a future time. It describes the beginning or the end. And it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, give up. If it seems slow in coming, complain a lot. Post on Facebook how everything's not going right. Wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. Now, I understand this is not the original content. I understand God was talking to Habakkuk about what he was doing with Israel, but I believe that he wants to show us something about you and me in this verse and about the things he's told you, but you haven't yet seen done. I want to ask you a question. If you're honest, you might be asking this question. I want you to wrestle with Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3. First question is this: why did God tell you about it now if it wasn't for now? Why are you teasing me, God? Oh, I feel like God, I went to this youth camp and God told me that I was going to do this, and he was going to do this in my life. But that was 6 months ago. It didn't happen yet, so maybe I just got... God, why'd you even tell me about it? I went to this conference, or I was down here at the altar, or one day I was in my car just praying and God showed me. But it never happened. God, why did you even show me that? Why did you tell me now if it wasn't for now? Isn't that a valid question? He said, write the vision, but it ain't for right now. I think it's okay to ask God, God, why did you tell me about it now if it's not even for now? I mean, you're going to do it anyway. Why'd you tell me now if it's not for now? I felt like the Lord said, because He is releasing a word. He's releasing a word in your 1987 that's going to affect your 2020. See, He knew my 2020 was coming, and He put some words in 1987 that would be there for 2020. The Lord works through words. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And what did He do to create? Did He arm wrestle? Did He build? Did He get a skill saw? No, He spoke. God creates and produces through words. That's why He gave us His word. That's why Jesus, before His name was Jesus, in eternity He was called the Word. God works through the word. So if God releases a word, it's His strategy, and it's for His benefit. It's actually a seed. Somebody say seed. Are you catching this? The whole big idea is it's not too late, but you might have to wait. So God's saying it now because He's putting a seed that can grow into what it needs to be at the right time. Somebody say at the right time. Now, so why did God tell you about it now if it wasn't for now? He's trying to give you a hope and a future. Does that sound familiar? Have you ever heard a verse that says, I know the plans for you to give you a hope and a future? Well, you can't have a hope if you don't have an idea of what you're hoping in. But when He gives you a word, it's a picture of the future. It's a hope and a future. So that's why He's telling it to you now. And because it makes faith possible. Over and over, I share this because it's so important. We cannot have faith unless we first have a word. The Bible says that the just shall live by what? Faith. And we shall not walk by sight, but we should walk by faith. And Jesus said, oh, ye of little faith. And He said, when I come back, will I find faith? Faith is a big deal. Yes. And Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith, it is impossible to do what? To please God. But you can't have faith until you have a word from the Lord. So when somebody says, well, we're going through this situation, but we're walking in faith. The next question you should ask, you should say, oh, fantastic. What word from the Lord or His word are you standing on in faith? Because if you don't have a word, if this stage wasn't here, I'm not standing on faith. I'm standing in hoping, wishing, wanting, really, really good feelings. But until God speaks, I've got nothing to stand on. So why did God speak it now when it was for the future? Because He was trying to give you something to activate faith. Somebody say faith. Number 2 question, or number 2 point about Habakkuk 2 and 3. Let me read it to you one more time. The vision is for a future time. It describes the end, and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait. Somebody say wait. Patiently. For it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. Now, notice the part of the passage that said it describes the end. It describes the end. He's giving you a hope and a future, and He gave you this word. Oh, God says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take you to the promised land. But He didn't mention any giants. He didn't mention the desert. He didn't mention the Red Sea. He didn't mention the Egyptian army. He didn't mention the struggle. Yeah. It described the future, but it didn't describe the in-between. It didn't describe the struggle, and it didn't describe the preparation. Wow. Yes. But those of us who've been walking with the Lord for more than 10 minutes, we know the part He left out, don't we? Yes. First comes the word, the promise, yes, God. Over here. Somebody say later. is the fulfillment. This part right here, he doesn't usually give you all the details. Because if he did, now you ain't gonna get me like that guy. Is that true? Yes. But what he gives you is a word. Yes. So that when you're going through this season, some people call it the struggle. But I believe God calls it the preparation. Wow. Because when he gives you the word, it doesn't mean you're ready, it means you're called. Yeah. But there's this season called preparation. And it lasts about 2 weeks. Is that true? No. It's going to last as long as it takes. Yeah, sometimes I make it longer, don't you? Now, God said it will not be delayed. And I'm like, are you sure? Because sometimes it feels like it's delayed. I want to show you some people in the Bible. And maybe you can relate to some of the things that happened to him. There's this guy named Abraham. Y'all heard of him? Yeah. I was like, Lord, what did you give Abraham? Well, he received a word. Have you ever received a word from the Lord? He received a promise. I like promises. He received a calling and a covenant. That's big. Okay? Abraham received all that. Let's go over it again. A word, a promise, a calling, and a covenant. Maybe you can relate. But he still didn't have the son that he was promised. Now, he was already old when he got the promise. 75, he was already feeling like it was too late. And God said, it's not too late. And he was probably thinking, well, it was close. It was close, Lord. Look at me and Sarah. It was close. And so I'm not trying to be funny, but Abraham and Sarah did everything they knew to do to make a baby. Because God said it, we're standing on it. Year one, they were like, okay, 76. I mean, it's going to happen soon, because you know. 77, 78, 79. And he's like, maybe Hagar. No. And so, you know, we preached on Abraham earlier this year. But he was 100 years old when he had Isaac, the son of promise. No wonder Isaac means laughter, because he was like, you got to laugh or cry when you're 100 and you have a baby. It's not too late, but you might have to wait. How about Joseph? Y'all remember Joseph? Just going through our patriarchs here who understood what it is to wait on the Lord. Joseph, God gave him dreams. The devil didn't give him those dreams. He didn't have his own dreams. Those dreams came from the Lord at age 17. Y'all remember Joseph? And he ran to his brothers. He was like, I had these awesome dreams, man. Y'all were all bowing down to me, and it was so cool. And they were like, what? Mistake number one was sharing that dream a little premature to the wrong people, right? So he had the dream at 17. He's sold into slavery. He's wrongly imprisoned. And then the Lord, as I was looking at my notes this morning, he highlighted this sentence. What happened next to Joseph was people forgot about him. Some of you are saying, they forgot about me. I was going to do all this stuff, and it didn't work out, and now I just feel like everybody forgot about me. Joseph was in prison, and he had done the right thing, and he said, y'all don't forget about me. And they were like, oh, no, we got you, Joe. Next thing you know, he's like, y'all forgot about your boy. Some of you are saying, they forgot about me. Well, God didn't. God never lost you. He never lost you. You're right where he put you. Got that dream. Some of you have a dream from the Lord. At 17, he was 30 years old when the dream began, and then even a few more years before the whole famine and Pharaoh's and his brother. It took a minute. See, it's not too late, but you might have to wait. How about David? Y'all remember David? oh, this one really, because each of these guys' stories are the same but different. David was chosen and anointed. Some of you are chosen and you're anointed. Now, the anointing is kind of a mystery, but it means when you do things, God's touch is upon it. He blesses it, and there's an obvious result when you do the thing. God chose him, and he anointed him as king. Y'all remember it was kind of like a backwoods anointing thing and then the word had to get out. In fact, I believe over time, we know Saul was trying to kill him and there was drama, but everybody knew that David was anointed and that he was chosen. And here's the deal. Listen. Everywhere David went, people wanted to follow him. Because they sensed the king anointing upon him. It was easy for him to draw a crowd. But yet he couldn't get the crown. He could have been like, God, okay, what is the deal here? I mean, I didn't ask to be chosen. I didn't ask to be anointed. And these people were trying to make me be the king. And I'm trying to handle this right, but it seems like it's getting too late. How long must I wait? 15 years. Thanks a lot, Lord. 15 years. Because in between revelation and realization is preparation. You can't skip the process. Are you catching it? I was thinking about me and that word the Lord gave me through that man. I only told you the good parts earlier. 9 years old. And the guy said, oh, and also the Lord said, you're going to struggle with pride from time to time, but don't worry, I'm going to take you behind the woodshed, says the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. I'm like, hey, I'm 9, man. See, you don't always get the whole story, but you've got to be willing to go behind the woodshed if you want to get to the throne room. Some of us want the crown, but we don't want the process. Oh, God called me. God, I get it. And he's your daddy, and he said don't reject his discipline because that's what fathers do. But we don't want anybody to tell us anything. I need an organ player up here. So let me tell you about my dad. My dad's story. There's enough about me and my skeletons. So my dad mentioned this recently, but he was saved at around age 27. So he was an adult when he got saved. And, he'd come from a totally non-Christian home. There was no church. He was just totally new in the Lord. But, man, when he got saved, he got saved. See, y'all know what I'm talking about. He didn't have to. He was like, man, let's do this thing. And so a few years later, about 5 years later, approximately, about 32 years old, my dad dropped everything. They quit their job. They left everything, and they moved to Florida. My dad said, I feel like God has called, somebody say called, me to be a pastor, to go into the ministry. Only problem, Daddy would tell you, only problem was he didn't know anything. But he knew he was called. And so he said, and the Lord told him, so we'll go learn something. So he dropped everything. He moved our family to Florida, and he went to a Baptist Bible college there in Florida, and he began to learn things. And then before we knew it, we were back in Middle Georgia, and he was pastoring a small Baptist church in the outskirts of Macon. And I bet at first he was really excited. He was like, man, I'm doing the thing. But I want to show you where he was. Like, remember, this side represents the calling. Over here represents the manifestation. Here's this whole season of preparation. I believe if he could have seen it from the Lord's view, he was like, right here. He was like, I'm ready. And God was like, bless his heart. Some of us have done the same thing. Now, if you try to do the thing before you're ready, it hurts. It hurts. Well, I just got to learn. Yeah, you learn something. You learn how to get hurt. This is so real. So then, a little bit of time goes on, and my dad begins to believe and preach that God is a God of miracles. that whatever God did in the Bible, in the New Testament, that he's still doing. If he did it then, he'll do it now, because he's no respecter of persons and he doesn't change. And the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you. He started believing everything in the Bible is for today. That wasn't, yeah, you like it, but they didn't. It wasn't popular there. And they said, we appreciate your passion. You should relocate it to somewhere else. Now, we were living in a little house beside the church that didn't even have central AC, Aaron. A couple of window units. It was hot, man. There was gnats, and it was hot. And Daddy had given up everything for this little church and was pouring out his heart and soul. And they said, get out of here. So we packed up a little U-Haul, and we moved on. And my daddy said, you know what? Y'all got me, but you won't get me again. He said, I'll never do that to myself. Before that, he was willing to pick up the whole family, move us to Florida to a Bible college, and be poor and clean churches on the side and do whatever he could to feed us because he was called. Now he's like, no, Jack, churches will kill you. So he said, I'll never pastor again. And then within a year or so, he's visiting a church in Macon there, and we're just there for the service that evening. And they have some man from out of the country, I believe, or out of state. He's there. He's never seen my dad before. Not even in the service. He's out there in the lobby, one of those lobby prophecies. You're like, oh, Lord. And he comes up to my dad. He says, young man. Now, he don't know anything about Daddy. He says, you will pastor again. He said, and they will love you, and they will call you Daddy. Yeah. Amen. Five years later, Daddy still wasn't a pastor. 10 years later, still not a pastor. 15 years later, still not a pastor. But what he and Mama were doing was learning everything they could, serving the church in every way possible for no pay, no position. They led worship. They led marriage classes. They led this. They did that. They served, and they learned how to love the church. They learned how to lead the church. They learned the word. They prepared themselves. What are you doing in the in-between? Are you crying? Are you complaining? Are you saying, God said it, I believe it. God, if you can use anything, you can use me. Do whatever you got to do. Take as long as, because this ain't even about me anyway.
That's right. Wow.
20 years later, he became a pastor. And now he's been in the ministry for 20 more years. God is faithful. It's not too late, but you might have to wait. I don't want to wait. God didn't ask you what you wanted. He didn't. This is not a democracy. That's very American of you. I know you want to hit the like or don't like. God doesn't care what you like about it. He called, he chose, he's God. He is God. He chose you. He chose you. You didn't choose him. He chose you first. You wouldn't even know him had he not called you in his grace. God, forgive us for thinking we're in the driver's seat. Let me show you something else in Scripture. We're landing this plane here in a minute. I got two more scriptures. This is going to, it's what it did for me. Okay, I want to tell you something. I love Peter. Everybody loves Peter because he's a goofball. And we're all like, man, I'm like Peter. I talk and say stupid stuff too. Okay, here's a great example. Matthew 16. Okay, I'm going to read it to you really fast. Matthew 16, 13 through 20. I'm going to zip through this just to make a point and to set something up. When Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said to him, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, others Jeremiah, one of the prophets. And he said to them, who do you say I am? Simon Peter, our boy, You know what he said. He said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus was like, high five. Jesus answered and said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. Somebody say revelation. Revelation. Say revelation. Revelation. Okay. He said, and I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build, say build. Build. Say build. I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail from it. I'll give you the keys of the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you live. And Peter was like, hey, you know, it was church time. If I was Peter, I'd have looked back at the other guys and been like, chosen. Chosen. And they're like, what did Jesus say? I don't know. It's just some good stuff. Something about building. Something about building. I just know he chose him. Next chapter. Next chapter. So here's how it goes. In chapter 17, verses 1 through 4. 6 days later, my boy couldn't wait a week before he messed it up. 3 of them saw that glory. Jesus took Peter and the brothers, James and John, and led them up on a high mountain. His appearance changed from the inside out, right before their eyes. Sunlight poured from his face. That's cool. His clothes were filled with light. They realized that Moses and Elijah were also there in deep conversation with them. Continue. Peter broke in. You know that emoji with the zipper across? Peter needed that emoji with the zipper. Just zip it, Peter. Peter broke in and said, Master, this is out of the Message because I love this paraphrase. Master, this is a great moment for your chosen boy. What would you think if I built 3 memorials here on the mountain? One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. Jesus, I remember you said I was going to do some building stuff. Or you said something about building, and I know it was me, and I'm going to build you something. Is there another verse after that one, or is that it? Well, if you read it, don't worry about it. Jesus didn't even answer that. He didn't say. He said, let's go down the mountain. We got some stuff to do. And God spoke. And in Luke 9:33, Luke said Peter didn't even know what he was saying. Luke didn't hold back because it's way later. He wasn't Peter's personal friend anyway. He was like, whatever. He was like, I'm just going to be honest with you. Peter didn't even know what he was saying at the moment. He was just saying stuff. Because what I believe, though, we can laugh at Peter, but when Peter started getting revelation, see, Jesus took him on the Mount of Transfiguration and began to reveal himself in a special way. And some of you, God has begun to reveal himself in a special way, and you thought he wanted you to build something. Come on. It wasn't building time, Peter. There'll come a building time, but right now I need you to go through the process of preparation. And in the process, I'm revealing myself in a special way so that you can endure the pain of the process. It's not time to build, Peter. And we're like, God, show me something cool. I must need to be a teacher. Maybe. That's wonderful. And I'm all for teaching. It's great. We use lots of teachers here. I mean, we have lots of. But just because you finally got a nugget in your Bible study. And I don't mean that as an insult. That may be the beginning, because I believe everybody should hear the Lord in their Bible study. I just don't think that every time you hear the Lord, that's a sermon. We're all about equipping. Don't say, oh, you just want to be quiet. Just hear my heart. I'm just saying that sometimes God takes us up on the mountain. And we go, yes, God, I'm about to build something with this. And he was like, I really wasn't looking for you to build anything yet. I just wanted us to be together. I was just wanting to reward you for loving me. And the way I reward you is with revelation of who I am. Now there's a time to share it to the world, and there's a time to preach, and but there's another time just to be like Mary, where it says she pondered these things in her heart. She didn't start a thing. She just said, Sometimes Y'all don't struggle with this? Sometimes I want to share a nugget so you'll think a certain way about me. Sometimes I want to say, oh, here's something cool God showed me. Because what I'm really struggling with is pride and insecurity, like the man said in 1987. Y'all don't deal with that, do you? Let me show you one more. You ever heard of Mary? It's kind of a big deal. Nobody, okay. Well, she's in Luke chapter 1. Luke chapter 1, if you want to check her out. Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 38, right in there. Check this out. Now, this is good. This is good. This is from the Lord. In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a village in Galilee. Have you heard this maybe at Christmas time? To a virgin named Mary. She was engaged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of King David. Pay attention. Gabriel appeared to her and said, "What's up?" No, he said, "Greetings, favored woman. The Lord is with you." Confused and disturbed, which is a natural response to God's presence, by the way. Okay? If you're not a little confused and a little disturbed, you're probably not in the right place. You're like, oh, that's what this church is about. No, that's not what I'm saying. Mary tried to think of what the angel could mean. Luke said, "Don't be afraid, Mary." The angel told her, "For you have found favor with God." Listen, here's the promise. He just said God chose you, by the way. You found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you shall name him Jesus, which means Savior, the anointed one, the Christ. He will be very great and will be called the Son of the Most High, the Lord our God. The Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over Israel forever. His kingdom will never end. Mary's like, oh, can I get question. You with the hand up. She said, how can this happen? I'm a virgin. The angel replied, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the baby to be born will be holy, and he will be called the Son of God. What's more, your relative Elizabeth has become pregnant in her old age. People used to say she was barren, but she has conceived a son and is now in her 6th month. For the word of God will never, for the word of God will never. Let's talk about Mary. So he just told her, Mary, God chose you to birth the Messiah. Let's just all agree that's pretty cool. It's a pretty big deal. What an honor. So, if you were to continue reading this text, what it would say is the very next, it says she went to sleep that night confused and disturbed, but the next morning she got up. I'm not trying to be crude. I'm trying to make a point. And she put herself in a certain baby birthing position. And she began to push. The very next morning, she was wait a minute, how many of you delivered a baby before? Can I just see everybody? How many of you ever been a baby before? Okay. So you've seen it. Mary began to push. Is that what the text would say if we continue to read? The next morning, Mary got up and said, the angel Gabriel said, I'm going to birth a baby boy, and he's going to be from the King David. Push! Why not? Wasn't time. Wasn't time to push. It was time to prepare. Now, it may sound, well, that's ridiculous, Joey. The baby wasn't ready. Okay, but let's also agree that the virgin birth was kind of a big supernatural, can't figure it out kind of thing. Okay, I mean, you explain it. So I believe that God could have put a full 9-month-old, full ready, 8.5-pound baby Jesus in her belly that night. When she said, be it unto me as you have spoken, he could have said, boom! And she would have, oh! It could have happened. Could it not have happened like that? But that's not usually the way God does it. Is it? Usually he uses a process called pregnancy, where he puts the seed in you through his word. And then you got to carry it. Now, he's put a seed in your spirit, but you've got to go in preparation for the promise. But he gave her a clue. Catch this. He gave her a clue as one of the things she should do. We're almost done. Stay with me. He gave her a clue. Now, during this season of preparation, he mentioned something that I believe had two purposes. One was to bolster her faith. One was to help her prepare. He said, your cousin Elizabeth was also barren, but God put a baby in her. He said, she's 6 months pregnant. Somebody say pregnant. What was Mary supposed to do? She had a clue. During this season of preparation, he was saying, hey, now that you're pregnant, now that you just got called, you just got chosen, you just got anointed, you just got the word, you just got the promise, you better go through some stuff, so you better go find somebody who's a little farther down the road than you. You better go find you an Elizabeth, because you can be like, is this how it's supposed to be? And she's going to be like, yeah, baby, it's going to get worse than that. You're going to need to get an Elizabeth in your life, at least one. Are you seeing it? Now, if you were to go read the text when she walks into Elizabeth's house, here's how it didn't go. Mary didn't walk in and go, guess what? I'm pregnant. God chose me. It's going to be awesome. But we do that sometimes. God chose me to do some cool stuff. Y'all can't wait to see it. I know you're chosen. I get it. The Bible says when Mary walked in that Elizabeth said, woo! It says the baby inside of her, who was John the Baptist, began to leap because he sensed the presence of the Lord inside of Mary. When you're pregnant, you don't have to announce it. You'll begin to show. But it won't be overnight. We've all had people come to us, I'm pregnant, God's did it, and we're like, okay, baby. Because we know when somebody thinks they're pregnant, it'll be obvious eventually. It won't just change the way you talk. It'll change the way you walk. When you get around an Elizabeth, you don't have to announce you're pregnant. Elizabeth won't be jealous of your baby. She's got her own. See, when you get around true leaders, they're not going, your baby's bigger than mine, your baby's prettier than mine. You're just glowing when you're pregnant. They're like, hey, praise God. How can I help you birth your baby? Is anybody pregnant? Not for real like that. This ain't the way to announce that. Looking up at your husband and be like, well, I was going to wait till lunch. Spiritually speaking, is anybody pregnant? Is anybody pregnant? Has anybody had a promise from God? And maybe it was to do with, maybe you were like King David. You were chosen and you know you're anointed and you've been bumping up against problems. You're like, what's the problem? There's no problem. It's called preparation. It's not too late, but you might have to wait. Maybe you're like Abraham. You're like, God, you promised. And I've done everything I know to do. And he's like, just wait, prepare. I'm working on you. I'm working on the situation. I'm getting things ready. Maybe it's not even about you. Maybe it's the thing. Maybe God's getting the thing ready for you to. Maybe there's still a Saul in the present place. Maybe God's working in Saul. See, King David was like, you promised me, but my spot's not even open. Some of you have been called to something and you look and you're like, there ain't even room for me in the thing. God said, be patient. I'm working on some stuff. Quit making this all about you. I'm doing some things in Saul. I'm getting some things ready. I've got something. It's not about the title. It's not about the thing. It's really all this thing is about is trust and obey. For there's no other way to be happy in Jesus. If it's get your title, do your thing, build the thing, and then when the things, or you can't build, or you get old, then all of a sudden you're like, my identity's in the thing. And then he's like, I know that was a problem the whole time. Anybody pregnant? Anybody pregnant? Maybe it was a calling. Maybe you got a word from the Lord about your children. I mentioned today how my parents fought for me. I want to encourage you. If you've got a word from the Lord about your children, I don't care what they're doing, you don't stop praying. You don't stop prophesying. You say, God said in 1987, and I'm fighting for the word. I'm fighting for the seed. Many of us are only in this room today because somebody prayed over the seed that God spoke over our lives. It's not too late, but you might have to wait. I want us to take our last few minutes together. We're going to play a song. And I just want to give you a chance. Maybe you want to come to the altar and just talk to God about this. But don't get on your phone. Don't leave the room. Don't do anything to dishonor this moment, because I believe this whole service has been about encountering God. This is our final encounter, these last few minutes, to listen to the Lord and to speak to God. Let him customize something to your heart. If you want to be prayed for when you come up here, just come near these steps. We'll have a leader pray with you. If you want to be by yourself, go to the sides and just say, this is just me and God. I just got to talk to God about this. But I just want to take a few minutes and let's hear what the Lord would say with this song playing.
And all the questions, they come second to the one I know is true, yeah. Well, you've always been true, so I'm gonna wait on you, yeah. I'm gonna wait on you. I've tasted your goodness.
I also want to open up the altars. If you want to be saved, if you want to start following Jesus for real, come right up here and let's pray together. You don't have to wait on anything else.
Lord. Wait on the Lord. He will renew your strength. Hey, hey. So wait, I say, wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. He will renew your strength. So wait, I say, wait on the Lord. Yeah. Wait on the Lord. I know He will. If you're weary, why don't you wait? Let's strengthen the wait. He will renew your strength. Wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. He will renew your strength. You wait on the Lord. Don't get weary and walk away. For in due season you will renew. You will. So what? I say, I'm gonna wait on you. Yeah, I'm gonna wait on you. I'm tasting your goodness. Oh yeah, I'm trusting your promise. I'm gonna wait on you. Yeah. I'm gonna wait on you. I'm tasting your goodness. Trusting your promise. I'm gonna wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. He will renew your strength. So wait, I say, I wait on the Lord. I wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. He will renew your strength. So wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. He will renew. If you're weary, you should try waiting, 'cause He will. Wait on the Lord. If you're weary, stay right there. 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 He will renew your strength.
Just want you to pray. God's doing some special things at this altar right now. So just take a couple more minutes. Let Him finish. You're free to sing, free to worship, free to pray. Just stay connected to what God's doing. I know we've been here a while, but there's nothing more important going to happen in your day than this. God is touching hearts.
Just wait on the Lord. You should just wait.
Yes, you should just wait on
You should just wait.
God. Yes.
Instead of trying in your own strength, you should just wait.
Yes.
Instead of calculating what will happen if you go wrong, you should just wait. My steps are ordered by the Lord. Yeah, I should just wait. They that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like an eagle, and their soar. They shall walk and not get weary. They shall run and not faint. That's what happens when you wait. Happens when you wait. They that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like an eagle and soar. They shall walk and not get weary. They shall run and not faint. That's what happens when you wait. That's what happens when you. That's what happens when you wait. I'm getting a little stronger. That's what happens when you wait. That's what happens when you wait. You get a little stronger. That's what happens when you wait. You get a little stronger. In that way. They that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like an eagle and soar. They shall walk and get weary. They shall run and not faint. That's what happens when you wait. That's what happens when you wait.
Let's stand together.
That's what happens when you wait.
You let it play for a minute. Let it play for a minute.
That's what happens when you wait. You're getting wise. That's what happens when you
Turn it up, please.
That's what happens when you
I just want you to stand and engage. It's better when we wait, God. Yes. Oh. Amen. Amen. We worship while we wait. We warfare while we wait. I just heard the Lord say a while ago, it's better when you wait for it. It's better when you wait for it. It's worth the wait. While we're waiting, we worship. While we're waiting, we warfare. While we're waiting, we prepare. We're not waiting idly. We're waiting in faith. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. You are so good. Last, that verse that you just blacked out there, Chief. Verse 37, right above that one. I want to read that to you again. Verse 37 on the Bible scripture of Luke chapter 1. Yeah, thank you so much. For the word of God will never fail. House of Grace, the word of God will never fail. Would you read it with me? For the word of God will never fail. 2 more times. For the word of God will never fail. Last verse after that. Mary responded, I am the Lord's servant. May everything you have said about me come true. May everything you've said about me come true. May everything you've said about me, God, come true. May everything you've said about my children come true. May everything you've said about this church come true. For the word of God will never fail. God bless you. Thank you.